Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening to all my Indian audience, and a very good warm welcome and good morning to all the New York people out there who are watching. And today I have a very special guest with me. But before I introduce him to you, let me give you this little intro about me. I am Mona Lisa Joshi, the founder and director of a contemporary publishing house called Chrysanthemum Chronicles. And I will give you an interesting story also that why this live interview session and book discussion is happening today. I got this book Frost at a school exhibit of my children, and the cover page attracted me so much that I immediately picked this book from my children's school and some 4 5 months back and then started reading, and I was so involved in reading this book. I enjoyed it leisurely, slowly, and as fate has planned everything, I never knew that I would actually be interviewing the author Michael Paul Kozlowsky, and this is his book Frost. So let me introduce our guest today. I'll be inviting him over. Hi, Michael. Good evening. Sorry,
Hi.
good morning.
Yeah, for me, it's the morning. Thank you for having
Yeah,
me.
yeah, exactly. So tell me how you're feeling this live session and after a long time, I guess, because during lockdown, many live events and sessions were happening.
Yeah, this is my first live session. I've done plenty of podcasts, but I hope I'm well prepared for this and that it goes smoothly because it's a little nerve wracking, but I'm here and I'm eager.
I know, but it always is a new experience every time you do a live because there's always something new to learn.
Right, right. I can't wait.
Yeah. So I'll give a little intro about you. MP Kozlowski is a high school English teacher before he became a writer. He's the author of the Darville Tales and Juniper Berry and lives in New York with his wife and two daughters. So before I start asking you questions, you have to tell me that what is the inspiration behind this book?
Okay, well, the inspiration came. I was living in Manhattan at the time, and we had a dog, a beagle, and he was pretty old,
Okay.
and we were very tied to him emotionally, and he was going
Okay.
through a really sick spell at that point,
Okay.
and uh, we lived right down the road from the vet, and I knew I would have to take him, and I had a feeling that this was going to be it for him. And I remember taking him down the road, and it wasn't very far, but it felt like it took forever to get there. And
Okay.
he was very sick, and I couldn't pick him up because he was too sensitive. So he would cry. So I kind of had to pull him along, and I felt like I was dragging him, and it was just very slow and agonizing. And as I was doing this, I got a vision in my head of a post-apocalyptic New York,
Okay.
of a little girl with her beloved pet, and that she was desperately trying to save his life, trying to get him someplace that he needed to be, that maybe he could survive. And it all just came to me at once, and I didn't think anything of it. And
Okay.
I at the time I ended up getting our dog. His name was Romeo, which is where the brute
Okay.
Rome's comes from.
Rome's.
And
Okay.
I ended up getting him to the vet, and luckily, he ended up living 2 more years after that. So I was
Okay.
happy that wasn't the end.
Wonderful.
Um, but after that, I started. I was working on something else at the time, but
Mm-hmm.
I never was hit by such inspiration for this story as in one night. The whole entire story came to me. I've never had an experience like that. I knew
Okay.
not just the beginning and ending, but I knew almost every beat of the story. It all came to me in this like feverish rush, and I knew the next morning that I had
Okay.
to write it. And I started writing it from that day forward, and it just flowed out of me very, very easily.
Okay. So how much time it take for finishing the first draft?
Uh, usually for a first draft, I try to set myself to writing 1,000 words a day. If I could get 1,000 words a day, um,
Okay.
I think that's a good pace. If you get 1,000 words a day, you could probably have a rough draft of a novel in 3 months. Um,
Absolutely.
for me, though, at this time, I had uh, well, one young daughter, and my wife was pregnant for the second, and
Okay.
so life was pretty crazy, and I was staying home taking care of her and trying to write at the same time. So I wasn't
Okay.
getting as much writing done as I usually did. So I would say the first draft took me maybe a little less than half a year to get this one out. I tend to edit as I go. I don't
Okay.
I don't write one complete rough draft and then go back and refinish it. So I'll write one complete chapter
Oh,
roughly, and then I'll go back and I'll edit that chapter, and I won't move on to the next chapter until I'm somewhat satisfied with that
okay.
first chapter. And then once I finish the entire book, then I will go back. But then it's become much more
Okay.
bearable. It's not as intense. So I'll just edit small things on the way. So I had a very good working copy of the book after that first draft, after those first 4 or 5 months.
Okay. That's nice. That's a good enough time, and also I would say less time, because as I've asked and talked to many authors, they tend to take like 1 year or 2 year to complete a novel. So I would say your pace was quite fast as compared to that. And
Yeah.
how much time did it take for you to publish it?
Well, I
Like,
do I do write very quickly. I'm always writing, and I do work at a fast pace. So, I mean, there are books that I've taken, you know, years to write, but that's only because I move on to something else, and then I go back to it and I fix it up,
yeah,
and so I'm always jumping back and forth. But if I'm working on one book straight,
yeah,
I tend to work pretty quickly. At this point with this book, I already had an agent from my two previous books,
okay,
so I handed it off to her, and it didn't take that long to get published after that. I can't remember the exact details for this book, but it wasn't an agonizing wait or anything. The
okay,
publishing industry can be very slow and frustrating, and
yeah,
but this one went pretty quickly. Although originally, um, I had it as a more middle grade novel, like my first two,
yeah,
but it was much too dark for that. Uh,
okay,
and I knew, okay, I have to age up Frost and make her a little bit older, and then pitch it as a YA book, which is what I wanted to do in the beginning
yeah,
anyway.
yeah. Wonderful. So I'll ask now a few questions from the pattern that I've set for you. Let's ask this one. How did your first two books, Juniper Berry and Darwell Tales, happen? And were you considering writing as a serious profession at that time?
Right. So I was a high school English teacher for about 3 years,
Okay.
and I always wanted to be a writer. And it seems like such a far-fetched idea. Everyone always told me, "Oh, you know how difficult it is," and uh, my mom really pushed me to, have a reliable career, something that with that guaranteed paycheck and good future. So I said, "Okay," and it was like a dream to be a writer, like kind of being like a sports figure or a pop star. It just it just seemed unrealistic. So I went and I became a teacher, and it was very draining for me. It didn't come natural. I'm not a disciplinarian, so I just didn't really take to it, and I felt like I was doing the kids a disservice as well. that I wasn't the best teacher I could be. Um,
Okay.
so I did that for about 3 years, and my father passed during that time, and he
Okay.
left me a little bit of money. So I said,
Okay.
okay, I could either, just stash this money away and just hold it for the future, or I could try to do
Mhm.
something to honor him with it and try to make something of it. So I said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quit teaching, and I'm going to attempt to become a writer. I'm going to attempt my dream. I'm going to live off this money,
Okay.
and when this money runs out, uh, then if nothing happens, I go back to teaching, and at least I gave it a
Okay.
shot. So
Okay.
I moved to Manhattan, and I started writing. And in the beginning, I was writing all these really dark adult literary novels, very challenging.
Mhm.
You know, like a 1,000-page book that nobody was going to publish. It was just ridiculous, and I was getting really frustrated, and I couldn't get an agent, and I couldn't get any interest in my books, and money was running out. And my wife said, "Okay, well, why don't you change it up? Why don't you, instead of writing these crazy dense books, why don't you try to do something that's a little more mainstream, a little more accessible?"
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let me think about it. And I went to the movies one day, and I don't know if you know the movie Coraline by Neil Gaiman. Uh,
Um,
uh, it was this animated film, and I was
okay.
really moved by it. And I said, okay, I could do something like that. I could do that.
Okay.
So I went
Mhm.
home, and I came up with this story about this girl, and I had the image of balloons, and this story of a girl who meets this kind of like skeletal figure underground who can
Okay.
grant wishes by blowing into these balloons. And I started writing that, and I finished it pretty quickly. And I sent it out to a bunch of different agents. And I remember getting in the mail, my bank sending me my last $14. They closed out my account. Uh, I
Okay.
didn't have enough money in it anymore, and that week I landed an agent, and she sold it very quickly, a 2-book deal, and I didn't have to go back to teaching after that, and I've been writing ever since. So it really worked out.
Wonderful. So you've been really lucky that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you had your share of struggles as well. But there must be fears also, certain fears of running out of cash, and also like will it work or not? And of course, your family support. That must have worked as well.
It it came as such a relief that I really was lost for a while, and full of despair and questioning everything. And it's still difficult. It's even after getting those first books published, the road
Yeah,
is still long, and it's not like because I got those books published, every book I write gets
yeah.
published after that. I have plenty of other books that I've written that
Okay.
I think are even better, but they still don't get published. It's still a challenge.
It's a
It's a
process.
tough industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Being a publisher, I would now be able to understand better. I can understand, and also, like we have been publishing lot many anthologies, and we bring multiple authors together. So I've done two coffee table books as well. So it's an interesting journey also to get to know so many writers and knowing their caliber.
Sure, sure, definitely.
Yeah. So, why did you choose the name Frost for your book? And the readers would love to know. This
Sure.
is the book. To show it to the audience.
Right. Um, well, going back to my first book, Juniper Berry, I wrote that right before my first daughter was born, and so when she was born, I gave her the middle name Juniper. And when my second daughter was born, I knew when we were trying to come up for a name for her, I wanted something unique that I could write uh, a character based off of, or a novel. So we came up. It was the reverse. I came up with the name Frost for her as a middle name first, and then I said, okay, I know I'm going to write a book with the main character Frost, and it seemed to work for this character because I wanted to play off the coldness of the world, the bleakness of the world, and just the kind of set feeling that was all over everyone, and that you would expect this girl to be like everyone else, to be this cold, hard, frozen person, and she is the opposite of that. That she
Full
represents
of
hope
hope.
and light, and I wanted to get that across, that things didn't have to. In the bleakest and darkest of times, that there can be a light, there can be hope, and that's where
Yeah,
the name came from. So it all tied in, and I liked tying it in to my family. So each of my girls have a book named a character named after their middle name, and
amazing.
then with my the book I did after this one, Rose Coffin. Rose is my wife's middle name, so I have everybody covered.
Wow,
No more middle names, and now I can just move forward. Yeah.
amazing. So, Frost is your first YA fiction. Tell me a little about this book. You have already told a lot. So, I've also asked this one, that how much time did it take for you to get it published? I would love to know more about the publishing industry there. Like here, we see in a different way, and I would love to know what happens. Like you said, you sent your book to agents. Is it always necessary to send your books to agent? Can you directly also connect with the publishers?
Sure. So, well, with this book, like I said, I've always gravitated toward darker, heavier material. Even my books before this, the middle grade stuff, are a bit darker, even for younger kids. And I've always wanted to write more young adult novels, and adult novels too. So I was glad
Okay.
to shift over to the YA. In terms of having it published, especially here in America, it's definitely better to have an agent. But I mean, that's probably the hardest step. The hardest step is getting an agent. Once you have an agent, then the process becomes a little bit easier. However, like after I wrote these 4 children's books, I did get an adult novel published under Michael Paul Kozlowsky. So that's how I differentiated. I either use my initials for children's books, and then I spell out my name for the adult books. And for that, I didn't have an agent at the time. I was between agents, and I knew it wasn't a mainstream book because it's very dark. It's very literary. It's not a mainstream book at all. So for that one, I knew I should go toward an independent publisher. And when you go toward the independent publishers, you can submit directly. You don't necessarily need an agent. So there's a bunch of great independent publishers, and I personally think that they're publishing more exciting books than the mainstream publishers. Very interesting, very experimental, and so I would pitch them directly. And
Okay.
I found one that was interested, and uh, he picked up the book, and I was very proud of that. You don't get as wide a distribution, you don't get as much promotion. You have to do a little bit more self promotion, but there's something satisfying and fulfilling in that too.
Okay. So did you have tours and book signing events for this one, Frost?
Frost probably got my most promotion out of all my books. Uh, they had full page ads in some magazines. They I did a blog tour, which
Okay.
I didn't do that many in-store signings. They left that to me to do set up on my own. So I did a few of those, but it's not like I went around the country doing them. I would have liked to, but they put in a bit of promotion, but it's still nothing compared to what major authors get. So I
Yeah.
wasn't, doing these giant book tours in person. I would do stuff online. I would do blog interviews. I would do podcasts, things like that.
Okay. So, like here, I would give you a little about India. What happens is that I hope I'm not killing your time. It's fine if I tell these things.
Sure, sure.
Actually, like being a publisher now, I've seen that like those who are big authors, they get it easily from the publishing houses, from their promotional agents and all, and their PR team. But like us, like we have started as a new publishing house. I have to majorly do a lot of promotion, and we invite authors through our events physically, like this we do. And sometimes authors even have to cash out, from their pockets to get promotion and all. So this is how it works here. So I would like to come to the next question. That is, tell me about your journey of becoming a. You have told this. Okay, you have to tell me that. Do you have any exposure to Indian literature and writers?
Well, I've read White Tiger recently. Salman Rushdie, of course. I've read the works of uh, J. Krishnamurti, I believe it is, like The First and Last Freedom, a bunch of his works. But I'm always interested to learn more. I particularly would like to read some Indian like science fiction and fantasy. So if you have any recommendations, or any of your listeners, if people could reach out to me, that I always want open to new authors, and I love translated works as well. So anything you could recommend, I'd definitely be all ears.
Sure, sure. And I would be so happy to send you one of the books from my publishing house as well. You also will get an idea of how we do our work.
Oh yeah, I would love that. Yeah, definitely. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So the readers would be happy to know a little about how. Yeah, you have told me this. Frost came to life as a plot, as a story, but you have to tell me that which character is more close to your heart from the book.
Oh wow. Well, definitely Frost. But I think more so her father slash Bunt. I think is a very personal thing for me, because a lot of it is based on my father. Like I said, he died young, and when I was young, uh, he suffered an injury when I was only 10 years old, and it was a brain injury, and it was a long traumatic experience for me as a kid, and so a lot of my books have uh, strong father themes, and I wanted to show a parent who was there, but also not at the same time,
From
who
there, yeah.
wanted to help her and wanted to always watch over her. And as a parent, you can't always do that. Sometimes,
Yeah.
you have to let the kid be, and let the kid fend for themselves. So I really enjoyed that dynamic, and um, it was I think my favorite character was probably the combination of those two.
Okay, Bunt.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Yeah, even I love the character Bunt.
Mhm.
And what are your writing hours? Like, you prefer night or you prefer daytime?
Well, one of the things I realized, especially after becoming a parent, is that I can't wait until inspiration strikes. I don't have that type
Okay.
of luxury. I stay home and write, and I make sure my kids get to school, and I'm there for them when they get home. So that time when they're in school, whether I'm inspired or not, I have to sit down and I have to start writing, because that's the only chance I get. Once they're home, that's it. I can't write. I'm helping them out. I'm engaging with them. My wife gets off from work. We're doing the whole family thing. So my window is while they're at school, and so I have to put in the work right there. If I'm not in the mood, if I'm not feeling inspired, I say nope. You have to get those 1,000 words in. So I'll write during the day. Whereas before I had kids, I would say I'm not feeling inspired today, and I wouldn't write, or I'd start writing, at midnight and stay up late, and there's something to be said for that. But I think discipline for a writer is very important. And like I said, if you could get in, 500 words a day or 1,000 words a day, whether you're doing it at night or during the day, if you're disciplined enough to get that done, you're going to accomplish a novel. So, it's hard, and some days just drag, and you're feeling you're doing horrible work, but you put in the work, good stuff will come out.
Yeah. And when you're not writing, what is it that you love to do the most?
Well, I'm a big fan of movies and TV. I originally wanted to. I went to school. I did some screenwriting. I wanted to write for that. I think if I would have went back now, I might have gone to school for film. To direct. So
Okay.
I'm always watching movies and TV. I enjoy chess. I read a lot. I'm always reading. Um,
Okay.
but again, my main focus is our family and writing. So then your world becomes much smaller, and all those extraneous things. You say, is this really important? I could be writing right now, or I could be researching. I could be reading it. So you have to boil it down to just the essentials, and so that's about it.
Yeah, and from the word researching, I would love to know that how much research you also have to put in when you're writing something. I mean, you always go with the facts, or you create more of, like what you want to do.
Yeah, you can get lost in the research, and just get buried by that and go down all these rabbit holes. I didn't want to go too deep in my books, and I like being not too constrained, where you feel like you have to follow certain guidelines. Like with Frost, there was a book I read, The World Without Us, about what if humans didn't exist, how would nature take over the earth
Okay.
and take over cities. And I remember reading that book, and it was very helpful in how I depicted Manhattan in a post-apocalyptic world, about nature just taking over the buildings and the streets ripping up, and so that was very helpful. So I'll do things like that, and I'll read some books, but I try not to get too overwhelmed by it, because you could really just research for years, and I know
Yeah.
some people do that too, but that's not my style.
Okay. Wonderful. And this is the only genre that you have written, or you're trying something more, something else?
Well, one of the things I enjoy writing in all different genres. So, for example, like my middle grade books, I would say, are more like fantasy novels. Um,
Okay.
this is obviously science fiction. My adult novel is more literary, speculative. I've just completed a young adult horror novel. Um, so I'm always jumping from genre to genre. I don't want. I never wanted to be confined to just one thing, and I wanted to go all over the place. I was writing a memoir. I was writing just a literary novel with no science fiction elements. And I've also written a sequel to Frost, which
Okay.
I love the book so much. I think it's way better than the first, and it's a very interesting book. Um,
Okay.
Unfortunately, like Scholastic didn't move ahead with it,
Okay.
Even though the book sold very well at school book fairs, it sold over, I think, 50,000 copies. But
Wow.
the hardcover copies didn't sell as much. So they have this weird system where they only look at those versions sold and not the book fairs. So they didn't want to move ahead with it. So now I'm sitting on this sequel, and I love it so much, and I'm trying to find a publisher for it, but it's hard to find a publisher who's willing to publish a sequel to another book. So if I can't find anything, because I've been searching for years, then I might just eventually go ahead and self-publish it, because I do have an idea for a trilogy for it.
Okay.
And I didn't write that third one yet, but I would like to. And the second one is just, it's much more action. It's very dark, and Frost becomes, she's very innocent in the first book, and
Yeah.
she definitely toughens up in the second one, and it goes in some very interesting places. So
Wow, you have raised my curiosity level. I have to order it just after this session.
well, yeah, I think people will love it. So hopefully something happens with it. I would just stay tuned, and I'll try to update people as I go along.
Amazing. So yeah, would you like to read something from your book if you have?
Yeah, sure. I just have to go grab a copy real quick. I
Sure,
don't.
sure.
Yeah, hold on one
I'll
second.
read.
One second. Okay. All right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Is there any particular spot you would like me to read from, or?
You can choose your favorite part, whichever you like.
Okay. Well, I think maybe I'll just read from the start of the book, just as
Okay. Yeah.
an introduction to the book. So I'll start there.
Sure. Wonderful.
In the middle of the bombed-out room flickered a small fire, and near it sat Frost. The girl of 15, or was it 16 now, turned her head and watched her shadow against the battered wall. The wind blowing in from the broken windows set the flames dancing, creating a display of strange silhouettes around her. It was as if, after all these years, she was momentarily surrounded by other humans. She wasn't alone anymore. "Hello," she said to the shadows. She'd never met someone new before, and felt it'd be a good idea to practice just in case. "I'm Frost. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. Have you been in the neighborhood long?" Frost frowned. The words sounded cumbersome. She rarely heard anyone speak aloud, and didn't know whether what she'd read in her books was correct. She reminded herself to ask her father when he returned. The shadows didn't answer, of course. Once again, there was only silence. "I'm lucky to have Dad," she thought. It was a weak attempt to convince herself that she wasn't really alone, not technically. Frost glanced through the rippling flames at the slumbering beast warming itself opposite her. Rome's breathing was getting worse each day. It was garbled, hoarse, too much wheezing, too much spitting of blood. He could barely walk, and his tail remained still. Frost had had him for nearly as long as she could remember. They grew up together. He'd always been there for her, but now? She was well aware that she could barely take care of herself. How was she supposed to care for Rome's too? Where was her father? Frost stood up and walked over to the far wall, half of it blown away and exposed to the elements, and gazed out at the crumbling city. She was 32 floors up, the top floor of the building, and had a tremendous view of the devastation. Hundreds of thousands of cars were overturned and abandoned, most of them at the bridges and tunnels, some crushed by falling streetlights and debris from on high. Buildings were toppled over or burned out, skeletal. Some looked like melting candles, their facades peeling away. Nature was returning to the streets, ripping up sidewalks and tearing holes in the ground. There were no lights whatsoever, not even from the stars or moon. In fact, Frost hadn't seen either in years through the persistent gray haze. Sometimes she thought she saw the flames of fires in building windows, or on street corners, or in an abandoned bus, and wondered if there were other people out there, people like her, waiting for something better. If she could only reach them. even if there was just one person hiding somewhere in the city, a potential friend. But it was far too dangerous to leave the scudded apartment. In her entire life, Frost had never left, not once. A promise she had made to her father, a promise she regretted more and more with the slow passing of each repetitive day. What kept her most curious of all was the strange blue glow at the far end of the island, nearly 8 miles away. From such a distance, she wasn't sure if it was an illusion or some heavenly anomaly, or her father had told her about what was being built down there just before the days of Bedlam. Could it be true? Did they succeed? If they did, it would mean a better world was still possible. Security, medicine, community, everything. Her thoughts were interrupted by noises out in the hall, and it wasn't the continuous falling away of the building like she was used to. Her stomach dropped as she eyed the closed door. Had the eaters finally found her? She had forgotten to lock the door. Not that it mattered, not if it was them. The sounds grew louder. Frost closed her eyes. She wasn't ready. The footsteps ceased. With a creak, the door slowly opened, and there, standing before her, was a robot. I'll stop right there.
Yeah, amazing. And I think this gives the audience reasons enough to pick this book. Amazing. And you know what? I've made a full detailed review on my YouTube channel where I've read the blurb. So I'll share the link with you and you can see whether I've done justice to the reviewing or not. And I'll be coming out soon with a written review on my blog as well.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And if possibly you have some time and you can write down the answers also, I can also publish those on the website of my publishing house.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah. So it was lovely meeting you, though virtually, but still lovely knowing you as a writer, as an author, and also I think many of the audience who are watching, they must have learned a lot because there are many writers in the group who are watching this right now. So thank you so.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to thank you for having me on, and I really appreciate it. I'm so glad that we were able to, find each other online,
Yeah, absolutely.
and I just want to say, if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm at MP Kozlowsky on Instagram, on Twitter. My website is mpkozlowski.com, and there's a way to email me from there if anybody has any questions or anything like that. I'm always eager to strike up conversations about my books or publishing in general. So yeah, please feel free to reach out.
Wonderful. And I just want to know one thing. Do you write in the horror genre? Because I have a reason. I'll tell you later after this session.
Do I write in the horror genre? Well, like I said, I just wrote a YA horror novel. I just recently written a horror short story.
Oh,
But yeah, I do like the horror genre, definitely.
that's wonderful. Because the next month we are starting a short story anthology where we are inviting many horror genre authors. So I'll give you more details.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'd love to contribute if I can. Yeah, definitely.
Wow, lovely. So thank you so much, Michael, for being with us and joining this 1 hour talk show after a long break. I got to interview you as an author, and it's lovely meeting you.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye. Have a great day.
Take care. Thanks.
Yeah. So that was MP Kozlowsky, and this is the book Frost. You can easily grab it from Amazon India. It's available. I got it from a fair from the school, and now I'm going to grab the second sequel. As Michael has told that this even gets better in the second part, and I have to know what happens to Frost because there's a suspense, and I don't want to give out. That will be a spoiler. So, bye everybody for joining the 1 hour talk show. I really want to thank you and have a great day ahead. Great evening. Bye, all.